Do you live a grass is always greener on the other side kind of lifestyle? Let's talk about it. God said he has plans for you. God has plans for you, and you are in the place where he planned you to be. Sometimes we doubt that, but I am telling you that God is never behind. He's also never ahead. He places us where we need to be. But too often we are always looking to the next season of life. Like, oh, I can't wait until. And the reason that we're talking about this today is because of a clip that I had seen before, but I saw it just recently again. And I was just like, that is so true. And so I want to play it for you now, and then we're going to jump into this discussion. Again, I am Lorraine from A Single Mission, and I have a passion for helping women embrace their singleness, walk in their purpose, and prepare for the partner that they desire. I have with me my friend and co-host, Rene. Hey, Rene.
Hey.
How are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thank you for asking.
Excited about this topic with you. And I'm going to go ahead and before I play the clip, I'm going to ask Rene our new question. What have you done in the past week to help you live, love, or marry wiser?
Mm-hmm. So this week, last week, I was presented with an opportunity to use my professional skills and be paid for them. And so it was requested that I submit a proposal for that. And that was not easy to do. It took a lot of thought, a lot of prayer to really determine what I felt my value was based on my knowledge, skills, ability, my time, and the labor. And I feel like I came up with something that was good and fair. But to answer your question, what did I do? I took that time to look at myself and what it is that I have to bring to the table. And on one hand, I feel like that almost sounds like self-centered, but it's absolutely not. It was hard because I don't normally do that. So I actually appreciated the opportunity, and we'll see how that pans out. But yeah, so for everybody, I would recommend that we do take a second to try to determine what in the world our value is when it comes to certain things in our life, right? Whether it be your professional skills or whatever area where you have something to bring to the table. It's difficult. But
it is difficult. I'm really happy that you talked about that, just because I think that the fact that you said that can sound self-centered, it's just a typical way that we look at loving ourselves, valuing ourselves. And, you know, statistics show that women significantly undervalue their professional abilities and value. And when they are giving a proposal or charging, they significantly undercharge. And that's really, to me, about one of our foundational lessons that we talk about a lot here. It's about loving yourself. Love Wizerr is not just talking about outward love, it's talking about inward love too. And how do we love ourselves? How can we recognize what gifts God has given us and how we can use that and what value that is to the people that we serve? And so I just say, like, raise the roof. I'm very excited. I'm really excited about that. And I think one thing that I did this past week was I went to the library, which I love the library. Used to be like the bookmobile was every week. My sister and brothers and I would go to the bookmobile. I love the library, but you know, as you get older and life happens and you're busy and you don't get to read. And I do listen to Audible a lot because I still love books, but I can do it on the go. But I went to the library last week to pick up one book, and I came back with 8 books. And there's one that I have forgotten to pick up that I should probably do that tomorrow because I keep forgetting because it was at a different branch of the library. And I was just so excited to have books. It was like on leadership and health and other topics that I'm just like, I just want to sit down and read a book. So I'm going to try to read all these books. I'm not going to try. I'm going to read all these books. And get all this knowledge. Like, one thing that I've heard several presenters talk about, the fact that if someone writes a book, they've taken, years of their life and their experience, and they've shrunk it into a book. And now you can fast track what it might have taken them 10 or 20 years to learn, and you can learn it in a week if you read the book that quickly. And you may not remember all of it, but you absorb that and you can start taking action where it took them a long time. So reading is fundamental, and I love it. So here's another thing: how to be empowered and joyful in every season of your life. Go to the library. So, but let me go ahead.
I want you to know, last week, I don't know where in the world I was going. I think I was just going out to get some fresh air, but I was listening to Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr. Mm-hmm. And I was going to the farmer's market and I missed it. And so I was like, man, well, where am I going to go now? And as soon as I thought that, you said something about going to the library, and that's where I went. And I picked up some really great books.
I love that. Yep. I love it. Yep. Awesome. Hey, you all, if you're listening to this, go to the library. It's an awesome place.
Yes.
So we're going to go to our clip right here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Let me do this first.
We're married without small children. We can't wait till we have small children. Then when we do have the small children and we're changing dirty diapers every day, we can't wait until they graduate and get out of the nest so that we can be on our own again. I mean, we're always waiting for the next thing. And in doing so, we never fully engage and enjoy in the thing we're currently in.
So true.
And God has us in that season, difficulties and all. He has us there because there's something about his character that will be best revealed against the backdrop of that particular season of our life. There's something about us that will be built, perseverance and faith and character that we will have, that will serve as the bedrock and foundation for the future if we'll just fully lean into it and learn the lessons God wants us to learn right now. We will find that it makes us and molds us into the women that can handle what he has for us in the future.
I love that question. I love, first of all, Priscilla Shirer, one of my favorite speakers. The question at the end is, what is God teaching you about his character? And I love that clip. This is not the first time I've heard it, obviously not for this time, but like I heard it several years ago. And it's true. And she starts off by saying, when you're single, you want to be married. When you're married, you don't have children, then you want children. And I was thinking about this as we were preparing for today, and I was saying it actually starts way earlier than that. Like when you're a child and you start like forming, and you're just like, oh, I can't wait until I go to school. And then you're in school, and then I can't wait until I'm in a fifth grader. I can't wait till I'm a teenager. I can't wait until I'm 16. Now I can drive. I can't wait till I'm 18. So now I can. And there's always the next thing that's better than the thing that you're in, because that is the implication. Would you agree?
Are you asking me or are you asking the people? Because
I'm asking both of you.
Okay. No, I
tell me what you think about that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Because even like as we're talking about this, and she's talking about how, in our singleness, we want to be married and have kids and, all these different things, right? It made me go back to my childhood to think about some of the things that I remember saying that I really wanted, right? And my mom used to say, wait, you've got time, right? Mm-hmm. And there were simple things, like you just said something about driving. Oh, I can't wait to drive. I remember fingernail polish was a really big deal. I wanted to wear fingernail polish so bad. I'm almost ashamed to show you my fingernails. But it turned out that most of the things that I absolutely could not wait for were so anticlimactic. Especially when you're talking about simply, if you just ball it all up and say, I can't wait to be an adult. Mm-hmm. How many people know adulthood is a trap? You get in it, it's not what you thought it was, and you cannot get out.
You cannot get out. You cannot get out. That's so true. It's so funny because we spend more years being an adult than we do being a child. And it's like, we don't have, the only way to get out is not a way that most of us would choose.
Right.
So it's like, if we actually could be, when you're at this age, you're like, man, if I could have just been in that space for maybe 5 more years, maybe 21 would be, maybe 25, and then adulthood would start. I still have, maybe 25, 50, 75, some people years to be an adult. So yeah, it totally starts very early. And I think that, one of the implications by that clip that Priscilla was making is that we really do think that the grass is greener in that season of life over there. And so where are we getting that perception that it's greener or better over there? What do you think?
I don't know. I think that's a really good question. Where do I think we get that from? I don't know if it's from outside influences or if it's something in our nature. I really honestly don't know. I need some time to really ponder that.
Yeah, that just came to me. But I think that for me, I think it does have a lot to do with outside influences. I also think that when we are, and not just generic outside influences, we obviously, when we were growing up, there was no social media. You didn't know what everybody's life looked like, sort of looked like, at least presented as. But you still had neighbors, you still have friends, you have people in church, and siblings. You have an older sibling, and because they're older, they get to do some things that you don't get to do. And so you're just like, well, I can't wait till I get to do that. But then when you're where they are, then they have already moved, and now maybe they are, in middle school or high school or driving or college or whatever. And so there's that influence as well, that it seems unfair. Like, it's unfair that I don't get to do these things because I'm not there. And so that's why I think that it starts so early, with just looking outside of our experience and thinking, oh, well, what they have is better. But what you don't know a lot of times is that, yeah, they're older and they get to do things sooner, but they also have more responsibility. They also take responsibility in a lot of families for what you all do. If you're the younger siblings, they also have more chores, so like there's responsibility that comes with whatever those benefits that you are perceiving as that's the whole picture.
Right. So if you're talking about them being older, I mean, they might have had to wait their turn too, but we don't know that.
Of course they did.
Yeah, we don't know that.
You don't see that because you're always looking you're looking from a different perspective. And so you are just like with social media, when we look on there, we're not seeing anybody's whole picture. We're just seeing what they show us, what looks good. And we're just like, oh, I'd like to have that. But then you're like, you don't know what it took to get that. You don't even know if that is really what it seems like.
Exactly. Right.
So I want to talk about some of the things that we can do now. Obviously, our channel is geared towards single people, but it's for everybody. Things that we can do hey, Susan, and I'm glad to have you here as always, to do what she's advising us to do. And that is actually live in the season that you're in. Enjoy that season, grow from that season, learn, appreciate, whatever. So what is one thing that you think that, just in general, we're also going to talk about specific activities you can do, but like one thing in general that you can do just to help you live in this moment, in this season?
Listen. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about us as young people, or even myself. I've heard this before. I heard it when I was young. Just wait. you'll get there. All of the things that you want to dress like, an older teenager. You want to do the things that they do. You want to go out with boys. You want to, I don't know, have your friends pick you up in cars. I don't know, all these different things, right? And your parents tell you have that wise counsel in your ear that says, wait, be patient. This is what you can do, right? This is what you can do in the now. And I don't think I was able to hear that because I was stuck in my youthful mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Is it strictly the outside influence, or is it nature? Because by nature, sometimes we block out, that wisdom that comes from our parents when they're trying to tell us to be patient and wait. Because if I was able to take it in, and if I was able to follow that advice, I think that I would have, but I didn't value it. I mean, so I would tell young people to, consider what they are receiving, and increase the value on that. Try to understand the legitimacy of what people are telling you. An older woman, or sometimes, men advise young ladies as well, place a little more value on what it is they're saying.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because they've been there, especially when they tell you, I've already been there. You know what I mean? I've been on this road that you're trying to travel. Take your time, slow down.
Right. No, I agree with that. I think that when we are short-sighted, which particularly as children, you are. Yeah. That's part of being a child, is not being able to see really long into the future. And so when someone is saying to you, take your time, it's not exactly like you think. It's gonna, like, you'll get there, but enjoy where you are. All you can see is what looks like fun, what looks like privilege, what looks like benefits, and you don't see the things that go into that. And so that's part of the reason that you need parents, is because they can see that the stove is hot. And when they say it's hot, they understand hot. And you don't understand hot until you feel hot. But they're trying to prevent that kind of pain or challenge as much as possible. Now, I don't think that, life there, no one can escape pain and challenges, and no one should try to. As much as we don't like it when we're in it, it does help us to grow and learn lessons that we wouldn't necessarily learn other ways, most people. But being short-sighted, but even as adults, we don't. And she was talking even from an adult perspective. I started with children because I was just saying it's kind of like it's already built into our nature as children to always want the next thing, so that when we get to the place where we may be 25, 30 and our friends are married and we're not married, and we're like, well, I want the next thing. The next thing is marriage. Like, I've done the single thing already. I want the next thing. And so it's very easy to fall into that trap, or to stay in that trap, not to fall into it, to stay in that trap that you've already been in. And so I would say that really really acknowledging. Now, all of us say, tomorrow isn't promised to us, and we only have today, so we should live life to the full. People say that all the time, but not a lot of people really believe that. None of us really believe that we're going to die tomorrow. It's not just teenagers that have this sense of where we're never going to die. We're just going to live forever. We all kind of have that. Now, if you're sick or you might have some sort of illness, then you might have a better perspective on your life. But when you're fine and you're just living, no one thinks, okay, tomorrow I really might die, so I'm going to just live all out today and just enjoy it. But it's still true. And so I think that one thing that I would say as a single woman, single person specifically, or any person, is to develop your relationship with God. Now, this is something that you can do at any point in your life, and you should be doing at every point in your life, because there's no point where we've arrived and like, oh, we've got the perfect, most deep, profound relationship with God. No, there's always another level. There's always something more that he wants to share and show. And she was talking about seeing God's character within the context of your situation. Well, how do we see God's character in the context of our singleness, Renee?
Good on the spot, girl. How do we see God's character?
Or what is one way? It doesn't, have
what
to
is one way? I mean, we have to have a desire for it in the first place. I mean, I think that was one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received and it probably came from the Bible, but look for God in everything, in the good, the bad, the everything, because if you have that desire and you put forth that effort, you are going to see him. And even when you don't, you have an awareness of the fact that when you don't, you know that he's still doing something. And so you're still, you're still kind of striving. Your mind is still open for that moment, for that aha moment when you can say, okay, God, I see what you're doing, or I see that you have been present.
No, I love that. I love that. And I also think that, in Isaiah, God says to us that I'm your husband, and a couple of places. And God is saying that I should be the first and most important love in your life, because that's how God sees us. And so when we are in a season or a lifetime of not being married, because everyone's not going to be married like that. Let's all disavow ourselves of that notion right now. Everyone is not going to be married. We don't know who is or who isn't unless God has already told you that you are or you're not. Just wait. But if you are really connecting with God, developing that relationship where no matter what he does, as far as your marital status, that you're still going to love him, you're still going to be in relationship with him, you're still going to walk with him and have faith. That's the most important thing that he's trying to get to us, I think. Not to suggest that he doesn't want everyone to think like that, but we're not talking to everyone. We're talking to us. And how can we see this in our single lives and recognizing that God says, I want to be the priority. And so for many of us, even though we're not married, God is still not the priority. We've put all these other things still ahead of God. He was just like, if I allowed you to be married, that would just be another thing that is coming before me. And so, building your relationship with God from that perspective and seeing him as the lover of your soul, your provider, your protector, your all of these things, you're obviously your savior and your God, as all of these things, no matter what he chooses to allow or do as it relates to your singleness.
I love that, because sometimes we can be, myself included, so focused on being engaged to a man that we forget to engage with our husband or our Father in heaven, who is the one who's going to give us the wisdom and knowing how to handle ourselves in the meantime.
Right. And in a relationship, he is, as I've said here and in other, presentations and seminars that I've done, God's love for us and his covenant with us is the model for how our relationship with our husband should be. And so when we are lacking in our covenantal relationship with God, it doesn't matter how great you are together, how much connection you have. If you don't have that foundation, you're going to have issues. There are cracks in the foundation if God is not the model of your relationships. And so that's one thing. Another thing that we can do, and you can jump in anytime, is to fall in love with ourselves. And not in a crazy, creepy kind of way, obviously. But God said, love your neighbor as yourself. That means we are to love ourselves. So what does that even mean? How do we do that? What are some ways that we can do that?
Let me tell you what is so funny. I literally thought through this process yesterday.
Okay.
And as I was driving and as I was thinking through this process, I was saying that loving myself started with learning who God was. And as I talked through the process, I was like, it didn't start there for me. Because in my youth, I dealt very much with depression and low self-esteem. And when I moved to Virginia, there were some ladies in the church who took the young teenage girls under their wing. And for me, in my depression, it stemmed from like feelings of abandonment, not feeling wanted, things like that. And you may have heard some of that story in a previous episode. But nonetheless, these women came in and they made me feel welcome. They made me feel included, right? So when I was thinking, oh, this journey to self-love started with getting to know God, it didn't. It actually started with the love of these women who introduced me to Christ, who introduced me to God and who he was and who he created us to be and how he did not make any mistakes on us, right? So all of these feelings of abandonment, no, God fully accepts you. He fully welcomes you into his family, right? So it started with these women. And then they introduced me to a God and God introduced me to a version of myself that I did not know. And over time, I began to say, you know what, God, you're right. Because if I'm sitting up here saying that I don't like me or I'm not good enough, what I'm saying is what you created is not good enough. And what I'm saying is that your word is not true when you speak of my value, right? So
oh, I love that.
That's it. Literally, I thought this through yesterday. So I'm glad you asked that question.
That's great. And so I think that it's a journey. So when I was about maybe 9, I think I got baptized for the first time. I grew up in the church, and that's fairly typical of children who are born, their parents already active in church and their family and all of that, you get baptized around between that 9 to 12 age range. And I believed that I knew what I was doing and I believed in it and all of that. But when I turned 23, we had a week-long revival at our church. And I believe it was Marcellus Howard came to, this was a long time, but this was pretty impactful for me to remember. It was 30 years ago. This summer, actually, it was 30 years ago. And so he came and he did a evangelistic series in our church for a week or whatever, revival and stuff. And I decided to get rebaptized. Just because of some things had happened and just kind of my mindset, I think, and really coming to a different understanding of God's love. And at the time which I didn't remember this, but I was actually on the family life committee. So way back then I was doing this kind of stuff. And every week we had to kind of get up and do a little short family life presentation, a couple of minutes or so. And so when I got up, I said, I'm getting married. And of course, everybody went crazy because they had known me from when I was a little girl. And also they hadn't seen me with any guy. So it was just like, what are you talking about? But I was talking about getting baptized because we were having baptism that that afternoon. And so then I explained that. And so that made me think when you were just talking about this idea of, really connecting with God before we connect and try to connect with somebody else. And, I've been through the whole thing about being angry with God, about being single. I have a whole testimony about that. I have a whole presentation about that and what it led me to. And I know that there are people watching who might be in that place right now. And I'm just saying to you, like, go to him and talk about that, because God has a reason. And being single is not the death knell of your life. So please, go to him, talk about that, because God has a purpose for your life, and he will have that conversation with you. God doesn't always ever tell us everything that he has planned. We know that to be true, but grow, learn, love him, get to know him, so that then you can get to know your purpose and walk in that much better and with joy. Because I'll just say this, when that shift came for me, now 23 was a different kind of shift, but 40 was that shift around singleness. 23 was a spiritual shift, just a mindset, but I still had challenges with the whole single thing for years after that. This wasn't about that. But when I turned 40 is when that shift came about, why am I single still? All of this stuff. And that's when God started showing me my purpose. And this is part of it. Like what we're doing right now. I don't know that YouTube was around, but I wasn't thinking YouTube, but talking about these kind of things, ministering to other single women and men. This is what God started to show me. And once that shift came, my life did change. My focus changed. I stopped being obsessed with this idea of getting married and finding a husband. As I've said before, it doesn't mean that I don't want to get married. I would love to for the right person, but walking in God's purpose and doing the will that I believe that he has for me has been a game changer for me. So, yeah. So what else might we do, Rene?
Remember the idea that what we do today affects our tomorrow, right? So being happy today makes you a healthier version of yourself tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Being useful today in whatever way, whether it be great or small, just makes you a better contributor to the planet. Because there's so many times we hear, we want to make the world a better place, or you want to leave the world better, than when you came into it, right? And one thing that I was thinking about as we were preparing for this is that, a lot of people do try to think of these grand gestures, these huge things that they can do in their lives. And I'm just like, okay, everything doesn't necessarily have to be so big. And if you're anything like me, there are many days that go by where I'm like, Lord, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, at the end of the day, do you know who you always have in your life? You. Which means that you have you to offer to the world, right? So some of the things that I came up with, you offering yourself to others, right? Some of the examples of things that I came up with that you can do is being a big brother, big sister. This is in line, Lorraine, with you saying, mentor someone, right? Mm-hmm. Being a big brother, big sister. You can always volunteer at the food bank, soup kitchens. You can babysit. You can offer companionship to seniors. These are things that don't take much money. You just got to get there, and then you offer yourself. When you're doing those things, it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta, put food on a plate, slop food on a plate. First of all, don't slop the food. Please be respectful and do that with integrity when you're doing these things. But that is so impactful. Like if you go into it thinking about what it is you're offering and what it means to the person who is receiving it. And I'm not just talking about the food. I'm talking about your personality. I'm talking about your smile. Those things make a world of difference. And I believe that they make God happy because he says what you do for them is what you do for me.
Right.
That choked myself up on that one too.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, you can also foster a child. You can adopt a child. You can foster a child. You can foster puppies. You can, if you are a pet lover, you can take your pets to go visit seniors. You can go to the hospital and cheer up the patients in the hospital. I know when I was doing my iron injections, they brought this very cute dog. I preferred it be on the opposite side of the room, but it was very pleasant to my eye. And other people very, very, very much loved the dog. And I'm not gonna lie, I did too. When it came up, he was very gentle. You can participate at your church, at those work events, because again, you may not feel like you're doing anything, but when you go out into the world and you are happy and you are extending that version of yourself, that's brightening somebody's day, right? You were to go and do visits at the hospital or the nursing homes. There have been so many times where we say, oh, well, I was going to try to cheer them up and make them feel better. And then what happens? You leave out so overjoyed. And actually, flashback, Lorraine, as we were doing this, we have been friends 100 million years. Remember when we used to sing at the nursing home? That was so cute. That's a cute memory. That just made me happy. And look at that. How many years down the line it put a smile on my face. Read books at an elementary school or at a school. Go to the library, read books to the kids. It can be a lot of fun, right? And then I'll hand it off to you with this one because I think it's in line with something that you said, which is teach someone to do something new or share your experiences, right? Because if you do that, you're implanting new thoughts and ideas and new realities into people's minds, right? Because Lorraine, you go to New Zealand, you share your experience. Now New Zealand seems like a reality for me. When you say we should go visit, I'm really saying, yeah, let's book a ticket where I may not have thought that before.
Yeah. No, I love all of those ideas. And it falls in line with my just kind of big idea of improving yourself, like doing something and gaining experiences. So it's nice to have stuff that you want, that's cool. I'm not mad at that. I'd like to have some stuff. But not a lot of stuff because I'm a minimalist, but I would like to have like some stuff, So I'm not downing that. But like at the end of the day, no one gets to their final days and are like, hey, remember that nice house we had? Remember that car? Remember those shoes they're like, remember when we went to, remember when we did, remember when we sang at the nursing home, remember when all of these things. Remember when I went to Africa and y'all like took me to the airport and like all of that. And then you picked me up and remember all of these experiences that we had, not things that we bought. And so when you're improving, when you're thinking about like, how can I, develop, like personal development is like, we sometimes make that seem like a bad thing, but it's just like learn a language. Like I am working at Camp Kalakwa right now on the weekends, and almost everybody that I work with speaks Spanish. And I'm just like, and I just like sit with them on break and stuff and just like absorb it. And like at first I couldn't hardly understand anything that they were saying. And even though I've taken Spanish before, but like you don't use it, you lose it. But now like I understand even their cadence of talking. So that's the big start. That's part of it. It's like, it sounds so fast at first, but like when you're around them, you start to understand the cadence. Now I'm understanding some words and I can like kind of piece together some of the conversations, not all of them, not a lot of them, but some of them. And I'm just like, oh, you said this. And they're like, yeah. And so like, I remember like I was starting to learn Portuguese and I'm like, oh, I want to go back to doing that. And so just for myself, not because I'm going to Brazil or I'd like to go to Brazil or going to a Spanish speaking country, but just for myself. And now I can engage with even these people that I really like a lot in their own language. And so I think that that's just great. Like travel. I love to travel. We've traveled together. It's such a beautiful way to meet different people and have experiences in different places and history and beaches and fun and all of that. And I just think that, going to New Zealand for me, like I was there for a year as a missionary, everybody would not have the opportunity to do that if you're married. That's not an easy thing to accomplish unless your partner is on the same page. You can't just pick up and because I literally quit my job and was just like, oh, I'm going to go be a missionary. Now I felt like God was leading me there. I didn't just like randomly do it, but like, I didn't have to ask anyone's permission. I didn't have to discuss it with anyone. I didn't have to do anything but get the assignment and go. And so there's so much joy and freedom and possibility that we don't take advantage of that's in this season of our life. And then there's so many people who are married who are just like, oh, I wish I could. If I, but I can't because this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And these are all good things. But like she was saying in the clip, like you're single, you want to be married, but then when you're married, you want to have a child and you don't even really take time to enjoy the marriage. Like this is the thing that you wanted, but now it's on to the next thing. Like I've accomplished, it's almost like a checklist. Okay, I've accomplished that. Now on to the next thing, have a child. Okay, well now I've got to have another child. And then, but now this is a really exhausting and tiring. So now let me get to the place where they're in school. Well, then that's a whole different kind of exhausting and tiring. And so now and so we're always like rushing. And I'm just like, enjoy this part of your life. Wow, we're like really running out of time now. Enjoy this part of your life. This is a season or this is your life. But even if it's a season, it's your life. Because you don't know how long that season is going to last, and you don't know how long your life is going to last. And so take advantage of hobbies and become a mentor, like you were saying. Get a mentor so you can also grow and learn more. You have so much more to learn than what you have, and getting a mentor is awesome. Renee?
And cherish and nurture the relationships that you currently have.
Yeah,
that you currently have with your friends, with your family. Because like you said, that lifelong, that you may not have a spouse, you may not take on a spouse, you may be single for the rest of your life. You don't know, but you know that your family's always going to be there. Your friends are always going to be there. And like we've been saying, cherish the now, develop your friendships. Because I was actually talking to a girlfriend of mine recently. I forgot what exactly I was saying to her because I was feeling bad. You talk about relationships. It's like, oh God, like I'm tired of talking about it or whatever. And she was like, no, don't get tired of talking about it. She said, because your relationships are the most important relationships of your life, not just your, romantic relationships, but relationships are what your whole life stands on. You're talking about the relationship with your coworkers, the folks at church, your next door neighbors, a little bit of everybody. And if you can master those relationships, because everybody's different, everybody's bringing something different to the table.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you can master, the relationships in dealing with them, masters the relationships in controlling yourself and all these different things, you're better equipping yourself for later. But that's not the focus. Your focus is just cherishing what you have right in front of you right now.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. And the final thing I'm going to say on this, because we want to go through our scripture, and I want to say, serve your passion. And one of my passions is the Innocence Project. Like, I have a real heart for people who have been wrongfully convicted in our criminal justice system. And right now I'm doing a small bit of that in order to contribute, because I don't have a lot to contribute. But when I do, I try to give something either to help with the legal services or to help if they've actually been exonerated, to help them on their, path, starting a new life outside of incarceration. But this is such a huge thing for me that, like, when I have time and, I'm not just constantly working, like, I want to give hours, like you were talking about volunteering. I want to give hours to doing some research or whatever it is that they need a volunteer to do. And there's an Innocence. I'm not telling everybody to get on board this train, because there's an Innocence Project in every state pretty much. And so like, what is the thing that you're passionate about? Because it could be part of your purpose and not have to be your job. And so now you have the time, or you can take the time or capacity to invest in that and give time to that, where you wouldn't have that time, when you get married and then have children and all the other things. As we wrap up, I want to just read our scriptures here, and then I want to ask a couple of questions. Philippians 4 verse 4 says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice." That is an action. You're taking action. You're deciding to rejoice. And I was listening to actually Myron Golden talk about this verse, and he was saying rejoice means rejoice again. Like, it's already like a double rejoice,
Right.
like, do it again. So have joy and then do it again. And then he says, again, I will say rejoice. And so he's really emphasizing that. And when he says it, it's like a command almost. It's not like feel joy, it's saying do joy. And that to me is like making a decision that I'm going to live empowered. I'm going to live a joyful life. I'm going to decide that I'm not going to let my status or my circumstances to deflate me so that I don't have that. I'm not saying that you never have a bad day or struggle or whatever. I'm saying that your general perspective and attitude is one of joy and in appreciating what God is doing for you right now, not always looking for what he's going to do in the future. But then I went on and just read the rest of that, and I was just like, oh, look at this. Be anxious for nothing. I think that's perfect in what we're saying. It's like that anxiety about like what is in the future. No, like, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made to known God. God, he's not mad if you ask him for these things that you want, but the peace, and when you do that with prayer and supplication and thanksgiving for where you are right now, the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. And I just think that means that we will be able to enjoy where we are because we're at peace for whatever is coming. We know he's got that in his hand, but we also know he's got this in his hand, and that he directed our path. And so wherever we are, then he's got that, and he's looking, he's with us, he's around us, he hasn't abandoned us. And so that brings us peace in our circumstances. I felt like you were gonna say something there. Okay. So I'm gonna leave you with this question. Well, I got a couple more, but our checkout, usually we do a check-in, but I want to check out. In light of the discussion, what change can you make tomorrow to help you live empowered and joyful in this season of your life? Ask yourself these questions. What is God trying to teach me in this season, and what is he developing in me? What does he want me to teach others? And what is he trying to eliminate in my character? There are many other questions, but just start with those. Like, what is he trying to teach me? What is he trying to develop in me? What does he want me to teach others? And what is he trying to eliminate in my character? And I know I've seen this in my life. And when I shared my testimony, I talked about like him developing faith, but him trying to eliminate lack of faith or doubt or distrust in him and his purpose and his plan. And you're just like, well, why am I in this? But if I hadn't been in this challenging situation, I would think that I had faith. But it's not till you need faith do you really know you have it. So, so he's just like, nah, you don't got it, or you don't have it at the level that you need it. And so I need to. So yeah, we want you, single women, single men, married people, anybody's watching, man, woman, boy, girl, to be empowered and joyful in every season of your life because God gave you that season. We thank you for joining us again. And until next time, which will be our final episode of the season 2, next Tuesday. And all of us will be on there. Ebony will be back as well. And so please join us for that final episode. And until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless you.